Justin Jefferson just signed a 4-year, $140 million contract. Then there's guys like Brandon Aiyuk and CeeDee Lamb and many more that are looking for deals very soon. Looking at numbers, I'm starting to think that receivers are being overvalued. But wait, before you get mad, not the top guys like those guys. I'm talking about the fringe 1,000-yard receivers. Let me explain. As the whole world knows, the NFL has turned into a passing league. In the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the message was, ground and pound till we die. Running backs were getting the ball more than ever. But that changed, especially in recent years. Nowadays, we have receivers consistently getting 1,600 yards every year. Passing is more valuable in 2024 because the receiver talent is stacked, among many other factors. There were 28 players to have over 1,000 yards receiving this past season, and compare that to 2010, that number is just 17. When exactly did the NFL become a passing league? Well, it all began with Hall of Fame defensive back Mel Blount. Mel Blount played for the Pittsburgh Steelers and was a dominant cornerback built on physicality. He was insane from 1970 to 78 with the team, winning a Defensive Player of the Year during that time and snagging about 35 picks. He dominated so much to the point that the NFL implemented the Mel Blount Rule, a rule that barred contact with wide receivers starting 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. Blount was offended, but it didn't matter because the Steelers kept winning and took advantage of this new rule. At some point though, the rule seemed like it wasn't being called anymore. You can ask Bill Polian, former Colts president. NFL rules kind of favored defense in 2004, and Polian took notice in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots, where he felt like the defensive backs were committing illegal contact penalties all game, but none were called. The reason for this is because of the following wording of the rule. If the receiver attempts to evade the defender cannot chuck him or extend an arm to cut off or hook him, causing contact that impedes and restricts the receiver as the play develops. But there was another part of the rule that stated, beyond the 5-yard zone, if the player who receives the snap remains in the pocket with the ball, a defender may use his hands or arms only to defend or protect himself against the impeding contact by a receiver. Now what does this mean? The first is saying that defenders cannot impede a receiver after 5 yards, but the second counteracts it by saying that defenders can create contact with the receiver if need be. So in 2004, after Polian complained, the NFL clarified it. The next season, the penalty was called so much that it reached a 15-year high.
Deep shot looking for Sutton, and it's incomplete, and there's a flag!
Pass interference. Defense, number 26.
This ultimately did not make the league what it is today. That would be the 2013 Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom defense. LOB is one of the best defenses of all time, especially secondaries. They dominate teams throughout the season and will blow out the best offense ever in the Peyton Manning Broncos in the Super Bowl. The real problem with this team was that there was a need for a greater emphasis on defensive holding. Calling these penalties more often allowed teams to focus on the passing game, as it was already becoming more efficient within the past few seasons at the time. Net yards per attempt increased significantly, as well as EPA per play, and during this time period, it mostly is due to the penalties being called more, as well as yards after catch increasing substantially. Wait, have you heard of Underdog Fantasy? Underdog is the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick higher or lower on your favorite players' projections, and you can win up to 80 times your money in a single night. If you want to become a dog, go ahead and download the app, or go to underdogfantasy.com and use code FANATICS when you sign up. They'll match your first deposit up to $250 and give you daily special picks for your pick'em entries. Personally, I've been doing a lot of the drafts for the MLB the past few days, and it's gone very well for me, let me tell you. You draft your favorite athletes and compete against real people, and whoever's team scores the most fantasy points takes home the cash. Again, that is code FANATICS for a first-time deposit match up to $250. So that explains why the league has become more pass-happy in the 21st century. So it brings up the other question of this video. Why are receivers being overvalued? While getting 1,000 yards is still impressive, it is not what it used to be. In a run-heavy league, 1,000 receiving yards was a great marker for skill because 1, of the lack of pass attempts, and 2, a higher, less efficient, deep pass percentage due to play-action passes on second and short because the running back got a good run, or something like that. The passing game has changed to a yards after catch league, where YAC consists of almost over half of the quarterback's passing yards now, and this was not always the case. The passing game has changed to allow receivers more success since teams are running fewer deep routes, giving them the ball in space and allowing them to do something with this. Now, this point is not to discredit receivers, but more or less a credit to NFL offenses changing the game and making it easier for them to get yards. Scheming your receiver open is very important for these receivers to perform as well as they are statistically. The incorporation of the Shanahan tree spanning many years and coaches is huge for the passing game. Some of the schemes that help shape these passing offenses are the early 80s West Coast offense and Air Coryell. Both very different from each other, both also influencing deep ball passing, as well as short game passing allowing for yards after catch, which is more common nowadays. Their schemes allow receivers to 1. Get a head start with motion plays, as well as after the catch opportunities that were not as common back in the day. Shut up. Watching a guy juke a whole team is a lot more fun than a streak or a deep post, so let me enjoy this. Receivers are better as well, but in different areas than before. Nowadays, it is those yak guys that are succeeding more than anyone. Golden Tate made his career on yards after catch. But in the past, it was a little bit different. Who knows if it is the coaching or the player's skill sets improving? We all know it's a mixture of both, but which is more important to the statistical dominance of receivers in today's NFL? NFL rule changes continue to allow receivers and quarterbacks to have easier Sundays. The 2 rules mentioned prior have been continually updated, as well as other rules such as defenseless receiver, pass interference, and roughing the passer, as these all allow NFL offenses to pass at a higher success rate. These penalties are called more often, at times when we all are questioning what the refs were thinking. These flags have made it easier for receivers to work away from defenders, since contact is not allowed. They have an easier time in a softer game. When the first 2 rules I brought up were re-emphasized or even created, it made the league pass more frequently. However, this allowed quarterbacks to get hit more and injured more. So, they re-emphasized rules like roughing the passer to fix those issues, making it even easier for offenses to throw the ball. There's also the Brady rule in 2008, which made quarterbacks have much safer Sundays as they cannot get hit low if they were already being tackled. Rules in general in 2024 just favor the offense, specifically the passing game. These penalties extend drives, giving more opportunities to the offense to create more plays. This is something we all know, but it factors into why 1,000 yards are not what it used to be even a decade ago. Never mind 15 years or 2 decades ago. Oh, guys, I forgot. There's an extra game. Look, 1,000 yards is a clean number. It looks nice on a stat sheet, incentives, when you're looking for a new contract. But now, it takes 5 fewer yards per game. That is 1 more game for players to make up for, say they miss a game, or if they play all 17 and just don't perform up to standards. It's just an extra game to boost their stats. It's unfair to look at 1,000 yards the same as it used to because of this extra game, allowing players to have a higher chance of getting that number. 1,000 yards is just overvalued in 2024 NFL. You see people online saying players like Calvin Ridley, Adam Thielen, and to a lesser extent because of quarterback play, Terry McLaurin, are much better than they are just because of their stat sheets. Calvin Ridley was genuinely not a good receiver last season. He messed up so many plays and dropped a ton of balls that would have been explosive catches. He had a low EPA, low target separation, and again, just so many dropped balls. The same goes for Adam Thielen, as he was a target monster because Bryce Young had nobody to throw to. DJ Chark was wide receiver too. If you look in the years prior, Thielen did not have a good past couple seasons. Both of those guys rank right in the middle of the top 96 receivers in yards per route run, meaning that their receiving yards are just inflated and they were not efficient as receivers. Passing efficiency and volume are at an all-time high right now. Bad passing teams force the ball to the only, quote, reliable guy, end quote, forcing their stats to be inflated, and good passing teams are just good. The receiving leader in 2010 would not even be in the top 5 this season. Shout out Brandon Lloyd though. The 1,000 yard phenomenon is like the 1,000 rushing yards of the early 2010s, where over half the league's running backs were consistently getting 1,000 yards or more, and very cleanly getting 1,000 yards. It makes you a good player, but not an elite one, which some people still like to say. The standard has shifted. Receivers are constantly putting up over 1,200 yards, never mind the 2 to 3 guys putting up 1,600 yards a year, to where 1,000 receiving yards is just not the same milestone as it once was. 28 different pass catchers on 24 different teams had over 1,000 receiving yards, and some barely eclipsed it. If it were 16 games, that number would be 22. Still a high mark, whereas the last 16-game season had 18 1,000-yard receivers. And 1,000 yards has become the 1,000 rushing yards of the early 21st century, whereas it is expected out of your number one guy, not valued. Stop inflating 1,000-yard receivers. The NFL is a passing league, and it is its own fault. The rules, great coaching, which is a good thing, and just like Homo habilis to humans now, Homo sapiens, I know my science, natural evolution, as skill sets and times change. Pay attention to running backs putting up over 1,000 rushing yards. That is more impressive in 2024 than it has ever been. And with all that being said, that is it for me, guys. Thank you for tuning into Fanatics Sports. If you made it this far in the video, come on, give it a like and subscribe to the channels. All support is very much appreciated, helps me out more than you know. Also, follow me on Instagram at FanaticSports25 and Twitter and TikTok at Fanatics Sports. This is Joe of Fanatics Sports, signing off.